Welcome to the Unrivaled Man podcast. Thanks for joining me. I am very excited to introduce my guest for today. Tiago Forte is one of the world's foremost experts on productivity and has taught thousands of people around the world, including me, how timeless principles and the latest technology can revolutionize their productivity, creativity, and personal effectiveness. He has worked with organizations all over the world and has appeared in a variety of publications such as the New York Times, the Atlantic, and Harvard Business Review. Tiago, welcome to the Unrivaled Man podcast.
Thank you, Clint. This is a real pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you. Well, Tiago, you have impacted the lives of so many people around the world with your building a second brain system, and really that was the reason I wanted to have you on the show. I want my listeners to be able to learn how this has impacted me and so many other people. But first, really, I would love for my listeners to learn a little bit more about you and your story and kind of how this all came to be. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how this all happened.
Yeah, you mentioned something before we started recording that I I don't usually go back this far, but I think it's an important point. I do mention it in my book, which is I grew up in a family of artists. My dad is a painter. He paints acrylic and oil, small paintings, large paintings with figures, still lifes, landscapes, abstract. He's a very prolific, lifelong painter. And my mom is a musician. She's a singer and a guitarist, classical guitarist. And then I have three siblings, come from a family of four. They all have different art forms that they do. And the way that this connects to building a second brain is it's kind of funny. I was always the uncreative one. I was the black sheep.
Yeah, everybody's like you said, that's a lot of. I mean, from painting in multiple mediums of art, including music. I mean, that's a lot. That's a wonderful thing. But yeah, you kind of feel different. So
Yeah, I was not my thing that I was known for was organizing. I like to organize stuff, which is not generally considered an artistic medium. I love Legos, and I have this whole story of just over years as a kid trying to find the ultimate way to organize my Legos, which kind of foreshadowed what I do today. I thought, oh, if I just organize these Legos in the perfect way, then my creativity will really be unleashed, and it will just be seamless and frictionless, and I'll have no challenges and no problems. And so I tried all sorts of things. I tried organizing by color, by size, by function, by theme. Was it pirates? Was it the space pieces? Was it the ninjas? Like the different themes. And actually, I specifically I have the story of wanting to create the ultimate spaceship. This was
okay,
like my big dream as a kid. I watched Star
so
Wars
not
and
just
Star
buying the
Trek.
kit, but like putting it together like
Yes, I
yourself.
didn't I didn't want to buy the kit.
Yeah,
I thought I can do better than all these kits.
I love it.
And so I was going to combine, a bunch of different kits and make this just epic spaceship. But then I thought, oh, but let me get myself organized first. And this is what I see people constantly doing with their big creative projects.
Hmm.
I want to do X. Okay, let me first do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. They create this
Yes.
laundry list of supposed preliminary steps. And maybe some of those steps are necessary. Like if you want to paint a painting, you probably need paintbrushes. If you want to record a song, you probably need an instrument. But not all of those, you know, like pre-steps are necessary. And that spaceship sticks in my mind because I never even attempted it. I never got myself organized enough that I had the confidence to actually try, which kind of to this day somehow I still kind of regret. I don't even know if I was capable. I don't even know if that was possible because I got so caught up in the organizing.
Oh my goodness, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, so yeah, my kids love doing Lego, and they build all the different Lego sets, and they love it, and it is fun. I mean, just last night actually, my we were trying to get all the kids to bed, and my 4-year-old was sitting there in the corner with just this pile of Legos on this table. We have this table that's like dedicated to Legos, and so he was sitting there building just something, and I still don't know exactly what it was because he's still working on it or whatever. But he's over there building this. It's late at night. He's like, we got to go to bed. He's like, just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. And so I just picture little Tiago doing the same thing. I'm building this. I'm gonna make this happen. And so that's fun.
Exactly. Exactly. That was me. That was me. And then if anyone asked me, if my parents asked me, what are you working on? Oh, I'm building my ultimate spaceship. Um, and so basically, fast forward, I think what it actually was is most when we think of artists and creatives, we usually think of people that are highly specialized to one medium,
Mm,
right? Like there's
yes.
usually someone will be good at drawing. They'll kind of be placed into this category of like drawing or painting. They're good at
Hmm.
music. They get placed in music or dance or poetry or theater. It's like we have all these little what are really silos, right?
Yes.
And once I mean it's fortunate to have a talent, but when you have that talent, you kind of get placed in this little kind of box. Which some people are fine with, and that's the best way for them to, reach their potential. But for the rest of us who didn't have this singular talent from an early age, we are still creative. I think we are still artistic, but we tend to work across mediums, right? Like a typical knowledge worker might work with text, right? In emails and reports they write, articles they write. They might work in imagery, a website they design, a graphic, a slide. They might work with speech, giving presentations, giving talks, even just speaking up during meetings. They might like all these different different kinds of content we have to work across. And I feel like a lot of what I'm doing is just my father and the way that he did his art is one of my prime sources of inspiration because I just ask, okay, well, what does an actual artist do? Let's get that practice, that tried and true practice, kind of tweak it, modernize it, like bring it into software and the internet, and often it applies, incredibly well to our work as creative knowledge workers.
I love this. I love it. Well, I mean, that's what's was. I mean, really, honestly, that's how I found you originally.
Mhm.
Is I was looking. For years years ago. I don't even remember when I first read the book, and I'm sure so many of your people come from David Allen and getting things done. That side of things, because David Allen really did some amazing things with his book Getting Things Done, and so many of his methodologies really did help me early in my career get organized at work and do a few things. But in our world with all the technology and all of the just really so much more content than really that book ever was, in my opinion, than that book was ever designed to handle, is in front of us. And so
Yes.
I was feeling overwhelmed. How do I handle all of this at work, at home, personal life, hobbies, everything? And I just couldn't find a way to organize things. And I started finding little videos of you and others that were talking about kind of your system. And I thought, well, Second Brain, that sounds kind of cool. That's kind of a
Mhm.
cool idea. Like, I don't want to keep everything in this brain because it's getting muddled.
Yeah.
And it's just funny how over time started to learn the system and realized, okay, this is worthwhile. There's
Yeah.
something here.
That's exactly I think the need that this is serving is we are now like professional content managers,
Mm.
right? The average person, the average modern human. You're right. We didn't used to have to think about this. Someone, some executive producer at NBC would just do this for us, curate
That's
what
right.
they thought we needed to know, and then Walter Cronkite would get on. I don't really remember him, but I've heard whatever the current newscasters would just tell us what we need to know. We had these gatekeepers, these trusted authorities, and
Go down to
now
the bookstore if you want to find a book, and there's just whatever's being pushed at the time by the publishers of the time. That's what you find, right?
exactly. Choose from
Yeah.
these 3 to 5 options, and that was your choice. Now it's an absolute free for all. A random blogger from the middle of nowhere can have the same reach as a major media organization. It's absolutely wild. And I think, there's negative sides of that, like misinformation and stuff. And there's also good sides. Like the good side that I think we often miss is that it's now an even playing field. You can have
Hmm.
access to any kind of perspective, any kind of idea that in the past you wouldn't have had access to. But That will only be a net positive for you if you have a system for buffering, for filtering that information storm. It's really like an information blizzard. You don't want to be walking out there in the middle of the snow naked in information terms. You need
Yes.
layers, you need boundaries and borders, and that's what a second brain is.
Yeah. I love this. I love this. So when everyone, I mean, so everyone out there listening right now, I remember the first time I heard this, I kind of thought, okay, all right, this is making a little bit of sense. I need somewhere else to put my information and to organize everything. And you might be thinking right now, okay, well, I can just, I kind of have a way I organize things. I use my email to put things. I can just search my email, or I put things in this place or that place, and I think I know where most of it is. But if you're truly honest with yourself, the average person does not have so many things in their life organized from where, like for the other day, like I was, we're in the middle of actually building a house right now. And if anybody's ever built a house or really anything at all, there are so many different pieces, different questions, different things you need to answer. And
Yes.
and it's absurd. You can't keep it all on top of your mind. You don't
No.
know where to organize. I'm receiving information from by text, information I'm searching on the web for something. I'm getting emailed a quote, but from the same company, I might be receiving information three or four different ways. and
Yeah.
and then when I need to make a decision, I have to remember where it all is. And it was so funny. Once again, as I started getting introduced to this, I started realizing, okay, that is truly a pain point I have. I thought I was pretty
Yeah.
organized, and as I started listening a little more, I realized, okay, there is so much more that I can gain from the information I have. So all of you listening out there, I needed to say that little caveat. Listen to this and start thinking about your own life, because you're this can change your life in such a big way. So let's keep going. So you got to the point where you realized in your life you needed to create something like this for yourself, right? I can remember a story. I believe that where how you had kind of had out of necessity began this whole process, right?
Yes, it was a unexplained medical condition that just came out of the blue, which was a kind of pain and tension in my throat, in my neck. I was 22 years old, in college, having the time of my life, San Diego State University, working at the Apple Store, which was kind of my first job and my dream job, selling computers, teaching people how to use computers. And I just was plunged into this world that I had no experience with and no interest in against my will, which was the wonderful world of the US medical system.
Yes. Oh,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and I worked in healthcare for a good 13 years or so before doing some of the things I'm doing. So I feel your pain having worked within that world.
It's awful. It's
It
truly awful.
is. It's
It's like
hard.
right at the moment that you are sort of at your weakest, right at the moment that you're suffering and you're not at your full capacity. Right at that moment, they unload upon you an incredible amount of highly complex, detailed, sensitive, you know, information and paperwork that you are totally unequipped to handle, and you have to handle it, right?
Yeah,
Because of
because
three
they
three
they
different.
have no other option either. They
No,
have to they
no.
have to give you the information because you need it now, and that's, it's a hard thing for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, you take in all this advice. Sometimes a doctor will just casually mention, "Oh, just why don't you try this?" Okay, well, I mean, just knowing that, just hearing that advice that makes no impact whatsoever. You have to take in that advice, interpret it, then you have to just reflect on it, write it down, decide how it's going to be applied, then apply it, then track the results of it. It's like running a scientific experiment. It's like a randomized control trial of one every time any doctor, and I saw probably over a dozen doctors over several years, told me
Yes.
anything. It's an absolutely insane amount of information and detail to keep track of.
Hmm. That is. That can be
And so that's
overwhelming.
what the second brain was in the beginning. It was my own personal patient record system. and I used it for nothing except my medical information,
Just
and
keeping
it
everything
worked.
organized. Okay.
Yeah, it ultimately worked. I mean, what? So to cut a very long story short, what I eventually discovered was it wasn't like an illness or an infection. There wasn't like a pill I could take or a surgery that I could do. It was what's called a functional condition. It was a kind of something going wrong in how my body worked. And ultimately, through taking notes and just noticing patterns and correlations, oh, if I eat differently this way, I feel differently this way. If I
Mm.
exercise, if I meditate, if I avoid these foods or avoid, have better posture, all these little things, each one of which was not this like silver bullet. But basically, to summarize all this, I learned the importance of self care. As a 22-year-old, dude, had no conception of, oh, I have to take care of myself.
Exactly.
But I ultimately found a resolution that honestly no doctor could have told me, because I am the only one that can look at my holistic life picture and see the totality. No doctor is going to do that for me.
I love that. Well, that's true, and that's really the segue here to all of this is that's true in all parts of our lives, right?
Mhm.
No magic fairy is going to come and tap all of the knowledge and organize everything that we get bombarded with every day and just organize it for us. Even if they could organize it for you, it wouldn't work in the end.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah,
craziest thing. I remember one time I thought, somebody should come up with a business where they come in and they just organize all of your digital files. Like they just
yeah,
organize everything and they go through and just make it so it's just a perfect system. And then after I thought about it a little longer, I thought it wouldn't work. It would
yeah,
be destroyed immediately after. Like it's the creation of the system that where you get the buy-in and you actually figure out how it works for your life. And
yeah,
it was once again so you segued obviously right in a big way from taking just your healthcare into your own hands and seeing patterns and changing your life to gathering more information in your life.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It was such a slow, gradual evolution over many years. But I just realized, wait a minute, this approach, this system that I'd created, it wasn't strictly for medical information. It was a general purpose note-taking system. There was no reason I couldn't use it for all sorts of things. And so I did. I used it to study abroad and to manage all the, finding housing, figuring out all the different, things I had to figure out to study abroad in Brazil and then Colombia. I used it to teach English in those two countries. I worked as an English teacher at local schools, and then that's a whole nother domain, lesson planning, keeping track of exercises and vocabulary words and homework and grades and all these things. And then it just kept expanding. I think what was happening is it's like my confidence and my agency was increasing alongside this system that I was using, where it just started being applied to more and more areas of my life, until eventually I used it to get a job, my first kind of professional job for a consulting firm in San Francisco, and then a couple years later, used it to start a blog. Right when I started my blog, many people started a blog, but then you're like, what do I write about? Well,
Yeah.
I looked over here and I had, at this point, several thousand notes that I had saved on things I'd read in books, things I'd read in seminars and classes. Like at that time I was maybe 27 or something, very young. Like you don't think you have much life experience, but if you've written stuff down, 27 years is a long time. You do have life experience, at least life experience that might be interesting to people your own age or people a bit younger than you. And then eventually I use it to start a business, use it to launch a course, and now my second brain is just my second brain. It's every unless something has to be done by my first brain, like it actually matters to my first brain, by default at this point it goes into my second brain and I just don't even worry about it.
Yeah. And that's a big one. I'm gonna focus on what you just said. You said after it goes, right? If you made the decision, it doesn't need to be in your first brain, which basically means on your mind, right? Like I,
Mhm.
I always think of it from a computer standpoint. It's like if something is actively being used by the RAM or the
Mhm.
processor, like right now, it is slowing down the system. It is slowing down the
Yes.
computer in some way, even if it's small. And so all of these things that are just hanging out in our mind,
Yeah.
right, have to be put in a trusted system, right? And
Yeah.
that's what I love is being able to put it there. And really what happened to me is I used to do things in a similar way where I would try and like remember things. I'd like write on a
Yeah.
sticky note. And I still do this on occasion if it's something that's like I really want to know like now. But to try and remember something. And it's like, well, that's and then before I know it, I have 30 sticky notes. It's like, well, that's not doing anything. My brain is still going to keep thinking about it because it's not in a good place. So take us through a little bit more. So your second brain is a place where you can get it out of your mind and know that it's safe.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really worth asking yourself, what is worth worrying about?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to worry about? Probably very little. There's very few things in life that actually get better when you worry about them.
Exactly.
And this is something that's so pervasive in our culture. I notice it everywhere. It's this invisible background assumption that you can remember everything, that you should remember everything, and if you don't remember something, it's bad. Like, think
Mm,
about every time someone says, "Oh, keep this in mind." Like,
yes.
toss out that sentence as if it's nothing. And every time someone says that, I don't always say this, but I think to myself, what do you mean, keep this in mind? What are you really asking me to do? Memorize it? Like, just ruminate on it endlessly until the next time that we see each other? Like, you know?
Exactly. I like
No,
that. I haven't thought of it that way. I like
it's like,
it.
no, I'm not going to keep it in mind. I'm smart enough to know, this is a David Allen idea. I'm smart enough to
Yes.
know how bad my memory is. I'm smart
Oh.
enough to know that most of the time I'm not very smart.
Mm,
So if I truly want to remember something, I have to not even try to remember it. I have to write
mm.
it down.
And that's
Yeah,
profound, right? Because we don't think that generally. We think we have to know it, we have to know it offhand, we have to know it now. But why? If you can find
why?
it in a matter of seconds, why?
Yeah. I don't understand. It's like I said, it's pervasive. People say, "Oh, remember to always do this." Like in the case of habits or routines or best practices. Well, how? Or they go, "Always do something something," or "Never do something something." I mean, just how in the world is any of this going to happen? As humans, there is nothing that we are naturally worse at than consistency. We
Mm-hmm.
are the opposite of consistency. We are like little hummingbirds. We never rest. We never put our little feet down on a branch, hardly. We just flutter and flit around, attention span of zero point 0.1 seconds. We're always just moving from one thing to the next, going up, going down, going around, buzzing around. That's kind of how I think of our minds. And honestly, I'm fine with it. I'm not going to try to change the way my biological mind works when I can just complement it with this system of technology.
Yeah. I love this. So we've been talking a little bit about once again building a second brain is your a course that I took, and it's been when was the first time you did the course? I was in cohort 14 earlier this year,
Yes.
and how many years have you been doing that course?
It's been almost 6 years.
Almost 6 years, and I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it was an incredible experience going through that course, and I highly recommend that to anybody listening that wants to go deep on this. It was an incredible experience to go so deep on these things, and for many years that has been the only way
Mhm.
to get this information. And Tiago, I know for quite a while, has been working on a new book and has just released the Building a Second Brain book, which I actually have right here for anybody looking on YouTube.
Nice. There it
You
is.
can
There it
you can see
is.
the book right here. Beautiful book, wonderfully concise, yet gives you the depth that you need to be able to begin your path on this. And so why a book? Why write a book instead of just continuing on with the course?
Yeah, good question. We're still teaching the course. That's our main service product that we offer as a business. We'll still do that, absolutely. And actually, we have some big plans for it that we'll be announcing soon. But the goal, the mission of this business has always been to enable anyone in the world to build a second brain. Anyone. Which, when you really sit with what anyone means, which I've been doing lately, the
Yeah.
implications of that are pretty radical, right? Like anyone is not just elite tech knowledge workers in major urban centers in North America.
No way.
It's not just knowledge workers. It's not just tech workers. It's not just professionals. It's not just highly paid, people. It's everyone. And so what that means is seeking the broadest possible distribution and translating these ideas, which, like you said, up until now, these ideas have been around for years. None of them are new. They've been around in Silicon Valley, going back to Doug Engelbart, Vannevar Bush, back to the 60s, the 70s. We've known about the power of knowledge management for many decades. And
Yes.
note taking itself goes back even much further, back to the Enlightenment, the Renaissance. I mean, the
Hmm.
word commonplace, as in commonplace book, comes from the ancient Greeks, right? Like there's nothing new under the sun. But what I'm trying to do is sort of boil it down to a just simple daily habit, like a daily practice, like brushing your teeth, like balancing your budgets, like doing laundry, right? So people who aren't obsessed with this, like you and me, can just adopt a simple set of practices that just have a dramatic impact on their life. And of course, that means also it needs to be in the formats and the languages that they understand. So I went with traditional publishing, got everything from 5 years of teaching the course and boiled it down into, like you said, just a very simple, straightforward book, which at this point, I think we have over 15 international publishing deals. So as of now, it'll be translated into at least 15 languages, available in every little bookstore and airport and train station and,
I mean, I'm seeing you
library.
pop up on all the bestseller lists and everything lately. It's been a lot of fun to
Yeah,
see that it's truly going out to the world. It's amazing.
that's what we're trying to do. Democratize the practice of personal knowledge management so that anyone who wants to, that's the part we can't do for you, is the interest, the desire. Anyone who has the motivation, we want to offer something for them.
That's excellent. That's excellent. So let's get down a little bit more, just a little more granular, so that people can kind of visualize. Okay, so what does this mean? We know we need to keep some of this information that we have in our lives organized in a way, but once again, what are some of the more common ways? Like what does this look like?
Yeah, you mean like examples of how people use a
Yeah,
second
maybe
brain?
an example of where you might keep your second brain. Just kind of just as somebody who just kind of looking at a high level thing, where would they keep their second brain? We talk about using technology to leverage this. What do you recommend?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. There's a whole category now of second brain apps. I didn't even coin that term. I didn't even coin second brain actually, but I've started seeing people say second brain apps as a software category.
Hmm.
And that includes, the OG, which is a platform that I use, which is Evernote. Evernote launched back in the mid 2000s, was really the first mainstream software that did this, right? This idea that it's a place to keep information, not just for one project or one class, but for a lifetime of learning and a lifetime of productivity. That really, their mission to do that, it was what inspired me. But that starting point, that one app has now blossomed into, there's apps like Notion, which is kind of the current trendy up and coming one. There is this new category of what's called networked note taking, which is apps like Roam and Obsidian and Logseek are the three biggest ones. So now there's not one option, there's many options, and it depends actually on your personality and your temperament and your goals. I have the most popular series on my YouTube channel is a 4-part series where I basically take you through a personality test, and I tell you based on certain criteria whether there's 4 archetypes. You are an architect, a gardener, a librarian, or a student. And once you know which archetype you are, I can recommend 1 or 2 note-taking apps for you. So I encourage people to go check that out.
And I love that. And if you're kind of a nerd like me, I had to try them all, obviously, because I'm like a little bit of FOMO going on. It's like, well, I can't like miss out on having the best one. And spoiler alert for me, I went through all the different ones and actually ended up at Evernote, which I had used for years already. And so it was like, I know how it works. I trust it. Let's do this. And it's been an incredible thing. for me. And I've toyed around a little bit still with Obsidian and things and linking ideas, and it's been kind of fun. So any of you that want to go deeper, like I said, I'll put a few links in the show notes to some places where you can go a little deeper with Tiago on some of these things. If and because you really can go so deep on some of these, but you don't have to go that deep to get the benefit. That's the one
Mhm.
thing. I know some people listening might be thinking, "Oh man, this sounds like Greek to me. I don't know like all of these apps, all of these things." You know what? In that case, you know, start with something simple.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, that's what helped with somebody I was talking to. I'm like, just don't worry about going so deep. Check out the book, and just start. And if you want to keep going deeper, go deeper, and you can.
That's what it is. That's the other thing I was going to advise people is if any of this seems overwhelming, challenging, too much, too complicated, it probably is.
Yeah.
For you and your life situation, what you're trying to achieve, the time you have available, right? And so I actually advise you to start with the default notes app on your phone, right?
Yeah.
We live in this amazing time. We all carry with us a device pretty much 24/7. That device is a multimedia capture monster. It can capture text, photographs, it can download things from the web, it can transmit things to others, right?
Mm.
There's more computing power in that smartphone than like the entire US government had in like, 1980 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And very likely it already has at this very moment that you're listening to this a notes app of some kind. It's probably a very simple one, which is what you want anyway. Start there. You don't have to download or pay for one single thing, right? Just try. In fact, part of this series that I have is like a little experiment that I have people run, which is a 30-day note taking experiment, right?
Mm.
So I went back and analyzed my second brain. Over more than 10 years of doing this, my average number of notes that I take is 2 per day.
Hmm.
2 notes per day. And a note is small. A note can be one quote,
Yeah.
one image, one web bookmark. It's not like a giant document. It's one little snippet. 2 per day. So right now, the day you're listening to this, did you learn 2 things today? Did you hear 2 interesting ideas? Did you create 2 interesting little pieces of work or do 2 interesting kinds of thinking? If you did, you've already done 99% of the work. Just save those in your default notes app, Apple Notes, Android Notes. After a month, you'll have 30 to 60 building blocks, like concrete building blocks of your best thinking, which means you never have to do that thinking again. You're starting to build like a knowledge treasury, like a knowledge library where all your ideas that you've acquired, that you've learned are stored. And over time, like think about a year. In a year, you'll have what, 700 building,
Mm.
it's like 700 Legos. What could you build out of 700 Legos, you know, and the equivalent of that for your life and your work?
Yeah. I, that was one of the most pivotal, like, aha moments that I had during, as I began learning about this, was this very philosophy. The using the information, the notes you have as building blocks. I found that so many of the things I did in my work and my personal life were just repetition of
Mm.
something that I've done before. So similar. I'm
Yes.
writing an email, and the email just, it's almost like, I'm just writing the same thing again, just changing the names basically in some of the things I'm doing. And I'll be creating a document for someone. And all of a sudden I realize, wait a sec, I've created something like this before. And once you have everything organized in a good enough way, or put it in such a way that you can find it when you need it, man, that's the biggest, where you don't have to spend more time trying to find it. And then all of a sudden I start finding, wow, I can piece these little blocks together and save myself so much time in my
It's
work and in
it's
my personal life.
it's such a transformative shift, that one right there. We are not taught this. In fact, we are taught that it is virtuous, like we were
Yes.
saying, to memorize things and also to recreate them again and again and again and again. That's what we're
Yeah.
explicitly taught to do. We are not taught. I think
Make you think it's cheating almost to reuse something,
it
right?
feels like cheat. I mean, in school it
Yeah.
is. You can't you
Well, in
can't
school,
open
yeah,
up your
you're right. I
notes.
guess in
You,
school.
you can't take out your answers to the last test, and like use those as a crib sheet for the new test. But in the professional world, in the adult world, you can and must. you're not going to gain leverage. I think that's basically what this is about. Leverage is
Yeah.
about having better and better results while doing less and less work. As parents, you really learn how crucial this is because the trajectory of how much time and energy you have over your lifetime goes down.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
not going to go up, and it's not even going to stay the same. It precipitously declines.
and, and yet we have this really a superpower that we don't even know about, right? That we don't leverage. That's within our grasp to be able to reuse some of these things and to free our mind so that we can be present in the things that matter most, right? On this
Yes.
podcast, often we talk about making sure that we are present with our family when we're with our family, and when we're at work, we're present at work. We're all in wherever we're at. And so really having your mind clear in such a way as this really allows you to truly be present. I mean, how many of us sit there with our kids and you're sitting there and you come home from work and the kids are sitting there on the ground. I'm going to use Legos because that's what we've been talking about already. But they're playing with Legos on the ground or they're throwing a ball, whatever it might be, and you show up and you might greet them and say, "Hey, how's it?" And act like you're going to start playing with them. And within moments, your mind starts just instantly turning back to work. You're mentally back at work of all the things that you haven't gotten done, all the things that still need to be there. Or maybe it's something at your home and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I need to fix that thing or call
Yeah.
that person or whatever it might be, but it's on your mind and takes you away." So,
That's really the ultimate. That's it. The reason productivity matters, the reason systems matter, and personal knowledge management matters is ultimately it's like how do you cash that out? Those
mm,
savings, that efficiency, you can cash it out with more work. And there was a period that I did that. I was working 8-hour days, but getting 16 hours done because of these systems and these methods. But when our son was born, October of 2020, I just saw, I mean, so much changed, but I saw how just critically important the time, not just the quantity of time, but the quality of time was going to be for basically the rest of my life and his. And I just as one example, I made the decision I was going to finish work every day by 2 o'clock,
hmm
which sounds absurd, right? If you're used to basically having to spend like in order to provide value, spend X units of your time. You can't just reduce by 30 or 40% how much time you're working, right? Because then your income will go down by 30 or 40%. Your output will go down by 30 or 40%. But I think, looking back on my medical condition even, I'm grateful for it now because it forced me to learn a lesson very young, which is to decouple the results that I'm trying to produce from my raw physical effort. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because of what was happening with my body and my health. And having learned that lesson that it is not my job to do work. It is my job to create systems to do the work,
hmm
which means I can work more or can work less or I can even take days off. Those systems continue to operate, right? They continue to produce
yes,
value. They continue to make my knowledge available to others, which is ultimately what we do as knowledge workers, even if I'm
hmm
not personally there sitting at my desk writing emails and doing Zoom calls and different things.
yeah. See, that's profound. I mean, because so many people they might be thinking, well, I don't own my company. I work in an organization. I have certain expectations. I have fill in the blank. And I think as they go a little deeper, like you said, they can find places within their jobs where they can uncouple, right, the result from the time spent and begin to actually leverage those things a little more at work. But then once again, other parts of their lives as well, because save time is save time. Save
Yeah,
mental energy is save mental energy, no matter what part of your life it's in.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've been self-employed 10 years and only 2 of those have I had employees. And actually, funny enough, I had to learn this and master it before I could hire.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people think, I mean, you've probably, like, you have experience with this too, but people think, oh, I'm going to hire someone, they're going to come in and just fix all my problems. No, no, no,
Yes.
no, no. They're just going to amplify the problems.
Yes. Isn't that what they say is a system, or if you have a system and a poor system, when you add extra volume to it, is going to break, right?
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
it's the same thing. Yeah. Got to fix
Yeah,
this.
I had to learn how to use other kinds of systems. I mean, when I say systems, something as simple as a blog. You might not see yourself as a blogger or a content creator or a writer, but just I have this exercise I have people do called FAQ, frequently asked question, which is what is the question people ask you the most? It's
Hmm.
probably a question, how to solve X problem, how to navigate this situation. If you've written out that email or recorded the loom or written out the instructions more than 2 or 3 times, just put that into an evergreen shareable form. It can be in public or even just saved in your notes. The next time
Yes.
someone asks you, be like, I'm happy to answer that question for you. It's so important for me to serve that need. I have prepared. I have taken the time to prepare a comprehensive, detailed instruction manual to help you. Here it is. And by the way, that's sharing that link is way faster than sitting there and recreating it from scratch. That's what I mean by a system. It's not this crazy mechanical device. It is just stepping back from the immediate demands that are being placed on you and asking how to solve problems once and for all
Yes.
in a way that they're solved forever, not just for the momentary demand.
Yes. See, and one other thing that when I because in business, running companies, this is often what a business leader will do. They will go and they'll see something like this, they'll see a need, and then they will either create the system and write it down and all the steps and all different things. But sometimes it feels like a chore. Like, oh my gosh, I have to do this big thing, big project, has to look a certain way. And what I love about this is it's your system, it's your thing. Like somebody's asking a question or things are happening, like if it happens a couple of times, don't worry about it having to be so perfect. Like you can just save it in a place you can find it, and just you can forward your email to Evernote. That was one thing I found. It's like just forward the email where you responded. Like sometimes I'll do that into
Yeah.
Evernote, and I'm like, oh, perfect. Now I have my response. And so in the future, when I need that again, I can if I decide that it's going to come up more often, then I can formalize it at that time. But another concept that I love that you talk about is pushing out, making it all perfect and created perfect
Yes.
until right before you need it. And
Yes.
so, will you expound a minute on that? I think that's an important thing where we waste time sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to close out that loop, I'll
Please.
often just BCC my second brain. Like if I'm
Oh,
sending you
great.
a great answer to a question, doesn't even need to be a separate email, just in BCC. So the person won't even see this. They won't even know. I'm just firing off an extra little copy over here. I don't have to, I'm done with it. I don't
See,
have to
I,
do
I
anything
have
else
not
with
done.
it.
I need to do that. Okay, there, and that's great. I'm totally gonna do that now. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is one of the more subtle ideas that in my book, I think I only treat it lightly because you kind of need a second brain to fully appreciate what is possible here. But I think we're going through this transition as a civilization, which is in the past, I always think of like the 1950s. We lived in a just in case world. Like the 20th century was a just in case world. Everything was just in case. Do your homework and get good grades, to have a good, college application, to go to college where you also get good grades and have a nice diploma and a good GPA. And at every stage, you're asking your parents, well, why? Why am I doing all this?
Mhm.
And the answer is basically, well, just in case. Just in case you need it to get a good job, to have a good career, to work for a nice company, to have safety and security. And just in case it's kind of like a fear and scarcity based mindset, first of all,
Mhm.
right? Just in case, spending your precious time now for future eventualities that may or may not ever arrive is it's a conservative mindset, right?
Yes.
But also it only works in a predictable world.
Yes.
It works in a
And who
world
are
where
you
you can
creating it for? What circumstance? What, right?
exactly. If you can do that if you know what's coming, right?
Yes.
And in the 20th century, you could make a 5-year plan, 10-year plan. You'd probably be doing more or less the same thing at the end of your career that you were doing at the beginning, just more advanced. You could predict and plan. These days, that is all out the window. You can't
Yeah.
even predict what you're going to be doing a year from now
No.
at every level of society, from your personal life to your local community to the climate to politics to culture to international relations, every level of reality is now becoming unstable and chaotic. which is terrifying and scary and confronting. But as always, there's a silver lining, which is we get to have control. We get to have more agency and to determine our destinies in a way that was never possible before. And so the transition, I think, is from a just-in-case world to a just-in-time world.
Mhm.
A just-in-time world, it's much more about being sensitive to the strategic opportunities that are emerging around you all the time, right? Not being attached to, oh no, I have my plan and I have to follow my exact plan, but being open and unattached and asking, I'm open to many pathways, many kinds of opportunities, because you never know. Someone could call you, in an hour and say, Clint, I want you to come give a presentation to executives at this pharmaceutical company. And you're like, I've never done that. I don't know how to do it. Maybe I don't have anything prepared. Like that could be totally out of left field. But if
Yes.
you're open and fluid, this is really about fluidity, you might say yes. And just in time, pull from your notes, your second brain, a collection of slides, metaphors, examples, research, and in 1 or 2 days even be able to put something together it's like you're leaping through that window of opportunity just in time, right before it closes. And that will honestly lead to some of the biggest milestones of your career and your business.
Yeah. I thank you for that great explanation. It's because it is amazing how much this system can bless your life if if you actually capture the
Yeah.
information and put it in a place where you can find it.
Yes.
And that's what I love is so often that we're just capturing other people's ideas, which is a wonderful part of the second brain is capturing those things to remember. But you talked about it earlier on, capturing your own ideas that are unique
Yes.
to you and your view of the world. That is what I love because there truly is, and it's not just your mom that thinks so, right? That you are unique, you truly are,
Yeah.
and that's what I love is being able to capture those things for myself. Has for me organizing in this way has been an amazing thing to kind of see patterns in my own thinking and
Yes.
give me clarity on direction for what I want to do with my family or my business or
Mhm.
even hobbies. It's very interesting how having this information in such a way and making decisions on some of that information has has caused me to make different decisions in my life over the
Yeah.
last few months.
That's beautifully
So,
said. That's really what it is. Amazing.
well, well, Tiago, this is fun. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I really want to make sure that um, that my listeners know where this is at, what they can do. So I'm going to add links in the show notes to everything.
Mhm.
But one thing I love to ask anybody who comes on the show is what would be your top action step for my listeners? What's the so what? What can they do that would impact their lives today?
I would really encourage people to check out my introductory series. It's 4 really short, I think 10-minute videos. They're very action packed. We put a lot of effort into making them engaging and entertaining because those 4 videos will lead you through picking a notes app, determining your kind of note taking archetype, your personality, and then take you through a 30-day experiment to even, I would say, just do a test if this is even for you. I'm not going to stand up here and be like, no, this is the global universal solution to all problems and will usher in a new era of peace and prosperity for mankind. No, it's a solution to some problems for some people some of the time. So give it a test drive, see which parts of your life. Maybe there's only one project or one area of your life that you may want to apply this. That's fine too. And we've prepared, this video guide for you to do that, which I encourage you to check out.
I love it. Okay, I'm gonna put links to that series in the show notes as well as a link to your new book for people to be able to find that.
Thank
And
you.
where else should people connect with you? Where's best for people to follow you?
Yeah, the best place is buildingasecondbrain.com. You can
Okay,
find information about the book, the course that I teach, but also our free podcast, also the just plethora of free written content and visual content that we have on the blog. Buildingasecondbrain.com is the central hub of the Second Brain universe.
excellent. So fun, so exciting. Well, thank you so much for being here and congratulations on the success of your new book. And look forward to speaking again.
Thank you so much, Clint. Really appreciate it.
And for all of you out there listening, now is the time for you to be the unrivaled leader and unrivaled man in your life.